Donald Trump announced last week that the UFC will be coming to the White House in July of 2026. Here are my full thoughts and opinions on that. Thought number one, I think it's going to be pretty cool. I think to watch it as a fan, it's going to be pretty cool to see them fight there. I think Dana White will pull it off. I think, and I have no doubts about that. We all doubted him in Noche, but he pulled it off. I think he'll pull it off. My only concern with it, and this might seem really weird, but stay with me now, is that the UFC isn't ready for that kind of national headline and attention. The UFC's popularity has grown immensely over the last few years, but having an event, and I know Trump does go to the fights, as the president, so that is cool. I mean, cool and brings a lot of attention to the UFC. But going to the actual White House and hosting an event on White House grounds will 100% be 10 times bigger than any Trump MSG visit. Um, and a part of me thinks that, the UFC is not really ready for that due to, the way they handle some situations, like the whole John Jones retirement thing, almost makes it seem like the more eyes that are on them, the worse they perform when it comes to making decisions. Of course, the product they sell is really good. UFC fights are great. I mean, not all of them, in all honesty. We're coming up on a really shitty card. But, when it works, it works. If they cut down to a few less cards a year, we probably get better cards overall. But we've all been there. I mean, with Dana White, Dana White, I don't mean to just be like, oh, I hate Dana White, because I don't. But I find sometimes the way he talks about things and what he says about things is sometimes dishonest and not really the best way to, publicly announce things. We have Instagram live announcements for our fights, but which that's a whole different issue. Like for instance, the problem I have with Dana White was the Arman Tsarukyan thing in the UFC. Arman Tsarukyan did not hurt his back. He just couldn't make weight. It was that simple. It wasn't, Dana White kind of slipped in the interview in the last post-fight press conference and mentioned that, Arman made weight this time, insinuating that the problem was about not making weight rather than, being actually injured. Because as you guys know, Arman was the backup for UFC 317, Ilya versus Charles. So I think when it comes to these kind of issues, the UFC isn't ready for the popularity it has. I think there's a lack of professionalism at the highest level of the sport, in the corporate side. And we're kind of all over the place with power slap and, in all honesty, the jujitsu stuff, it kind of takes away from the main product that they're selling, which is mixed martial arts. Um, And so, and and then the whole boxing thing with Dana. I mean, the face of MMA. I mean, let's keep it real here for a minute. The face of MMA, Dana White, and the face of the biggest, the CEO, the biggest MMA promotion, is promoting a boxing event. It's one of those things that it makes you say, well, is the UFC really ready to host an event on the White House grounds? I am not saying that the event won't be good. He'll pull it off. It'll be a great show. It'll be a great product and a great watch. But I think when it comes to the more eyes the UFC gets from the public, the more displeased everybody is. I know there's this whole trend of, oh, you're a casual, I'm gatekeeping. I'm not trying to insinuate that at all. I think anyone should be able to enjoy the sport. What I'm trying to insinuate is the UFC as a company can't handle all that attention right now. So that's kind of some thoughts on the White House thing. I saw that Connor was interested. He sent like a voice memo to Dana White at like 3 a.m., which, he was up, I guess. Who knows what he was doing? And then Dana White said, "I love it!" Exclamation point. We don't know what the voice memo said, but it's insinuating that it's going to be about him fighting at the White House. And then John Jones wants to come out of retirement and enter the testing pool again. So, you know, it's such a nonsense, man. It really is. I guess any fighter, I mean, Dana White can't control what John Jones says on Twitter, but, and Dana White, I can't blame him for not bashing somebody on his post fight. I mean, he's done it a lot, but I guess it's a little different when the guy was like just there. there is a certain lack of professionalism if Dana White were to go really at John, in my personal opinion. It's over now. It really is. And he couldn't talk about it when it was happening because, that's, the business. If the contract's not signed, they can't really talk about that. So I feel like Dana White was never in a position to ever shit talk, so that's why he won't. Because now it's over, so who cares? Um, I don't know. I, I mean, as a UFC fan, I would love to see all the crazy events. UFC Noche at the Sphere last September with Marab O'Malley was a great viewing experience. I loved it. I was running around in my dorm room, excited that Marab was winning. But no, other than the actual fights, the show was really good. I know they're never going to do that again because of the amount of money it costed. But I'm never going to put it past the UFC to put on a good show because they 100% will. I think that's the right time to use that phrase. But I don't know. I know when people talk about like, oh, politics are a bad thing when it comes to MMA. And it's kind of hard because like unlike the NBA, like let's use the NBA for example, right? The commissioners change. It's a commissioner thing, it's the NBA is a shared product among different owners. So it's not like the UFC, where the UFC is a promotional company, they have a CEO. We all know, everyone knows about Dana White and Trump's relationship before Trump went into politics. So, there's that argument that though they're just friends helping each other out. How could you say no to a friend? And I mean, do I necessarily agree? I think it's a little bit of both, in all honesty. But the president is going to a sporting event is a big deal. I mean, Obama went to the Olympic Games with basketball. I remember being as a kid. That's so awesome. Obama's courtside. Like that's great. That's when I was like I was a kid when Obama was president. But still, it was 10 in 2016. So when he left office. But so I don't really necessarily agree with people saying, "Oh, the UFC is getting politicized." I think almost all athletes are political, and you know, we see it in every aspect of the sport, you know. And so I'm okay with that. I'm okay with a fighter saying like, "Oh, Trump, Trump, Trump." I mean, I see no problem. I'm not. Now at the same time, it's like, why do you dislike it? If there's two reasons to dislike that. If you dislike it because you feel like politics should be out of the sport, then I'm gonna have to disagree with you because I believe that anyone should be able to say what they want in the cage. I think that's awesome. Promo was awesome. I mean, if you limited people saying stuff in the cage, we wouldn't have those Moicano and Colby moments. I mean, look at Colby Covington. He's really taken the Trump thing and made a name for himself from that. I think that's awesome. Everyone loves the Colby Covington character. It's one of the greatest characters in MMA. The promo is amazing from him. He's super entertaining. He's not that great, but he's entertaining. And so, you always need that in the sport. But if you don't like it because you don't like Trump, and that's almost a better answer than saying you don't like politics. I mean, I'm not going to disclose my personal voting thing on here. I think I'm going to start the trend again of, not talking about voting like that all the time. But I really think that, when it comes to, fighters talking about Trump, I wouldn't say it's like, oh, it's a great thing, they should do it more. I think it's more of they should, feel empowered to say whatever they feel that's on their mind in the cage. Um, and there's Trump, and look, if the UFC does it, cuts a thing of Trump with the camera and gets the whole cabinet there, I think that's, it has to be done. It's the president. And I don't see how. I think it's almost worse if they don't do that because they're not acknowledging, someone of that high level of importance being there. So whether you dislike his politics or not, I feel like if we really take this from a more of a more of like a role he had, well, not role, position. He's the president of the United States, and I think that's a really honorable thing for him to be at the events. And the UFC is, of course, honored like anybody else would be. Trump shows up to the NBA games from New York. Trump's courtside at a Knicks game. I'm sure they're big fans of that. I think that that'll be awesome. But and I feel like Trump's more involved is because of relationship between him and Dana. I mean, personally. We're going to talk in the land of hypotheticals here. I don't know if Trump would go as often or talk about it as often if Dana White wasn't the CEO. It's his friend, which is completely fine. So I guess, it's more about Dana, really. If anything, I think he goes for Dana. But, he's a fan of the sport. I know he had his own promotion back in the day, 20 something years ago. But anyways, this whole White House thing is, it's pretty interesting. I mean, I don't want to get political, but I will say this is will be the first live sporting event held on White House grounds. And yeah, I mean, I guess that's cool. That's interesting. I'm just curious who's going to be able to go. I mean, I heard it's like they're going to seat 20,000. Are they going? Is it really on White House property, or is it like somewhere else? Because like, sound like you said it was White House property, but like 20,000 people in the White House is crazy. Although they do have tour guides, they do have tours for people, so I guess it's not that crazy. But hopefully it goes well. I mean, I'm never gonna say, oh, I hope the UFC fails at doing this. That's never ever something I want to say because it's not true. I don't believe that. I want the UFC to succeed in everything that they're doing. You know, I'm sure they wanted John Tom, no matter because if they didn't want that, they would have, done something else. So I'm never gonna say the UFC doesn't try or the UFC doesn't, do what's best interested for the fans because in all honesty they do. And no organization is perfect, no business is perfect, and they come up short sometimes. So but I don't think they're going to fail this. I think if they do the White House, I think it'll be a very big success. I think it'll be on the news, on the national news every day, and in the months leading to it. In all honesty, it's a big deal to host a live sporting event on the White House. First ever. We've seen teams visit honorary guests of the president throughout the decades and centuries, really. But I think it was the 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 Twins, the MLB team, were the first people to go to the White House in 1890. Could be wrong, but I think was it the Twins? Kansas City team. I'm not that familiar with MLB. Go Dodgers though. But I don't know. I think what do I think? I mean, when I say I don't know, I mean I don't know how the press is gonna react, and well, I kind of do. Let's keep it real here. Um, National media won't like Trump hosting this event at the UFC. Oh, for the UFC, they won't like it. They won't like it. So, and I could not care less of what they liked, but because of I don't care what their opinion is. Rather, I care more about how that negative press will affect the UFC. You know. I mean, the UFC has really tried to become a household name in the last couple of years, and it has succeeded in that. I think a big part of the UFC's success really has to do with honestly online gambling and gambling in general. I feel like that's really brought up the UFC. I think Dana White has marketed this sport as a sport for the young, a sport for the young. This is the new hot thing. The UFC is 100% the new hot thing out there right now. And with that, comes the young people trends. So, and the national media is mostly consumed by people who aren't, 35 and younger. So, you're going to have a lot different eyes, the different age ranges of people viewing the UFC. And, what a guy says on social media, it's hard to explain. And it shouldn't be hard to explain because it's my job to explain. It's what I do on YouTube. But a big thing that I could see negatively happening to the UFC is I think they'll go radio silent. If it gets really bad, I think they'll do the event. Dana White will not have that many public appearances, and will go and because it's already over the years, there's been a lot more secrets kept at the UFC. The UFC has kept a lot more secrets from the public. I mean, again, I know I say John Jones, but look at John Jones versus John Jones's retirement versus GSP's stripping, of the belt. Big difference, right? I mean, Dana used to be. I don't know if it's a distraction from him, but I'm not gonna say he's distracted because he's in the position to do the job. There's other people involved in the UFC that saw if he was doing the job they didn't want him to do, he would be replaced. That's honestly. So I think it's a business decision by the company in general, to make Dana and make the UFC more secretive when it comes to talking to the public about things that are going on behind the scenes. So I think this with more because I think the reason why they do it is because they're afraid of outrage. I think there's been a lot of negative news coming out of the UFC, things that we might not be happy with, things that, a lot of people aren't happy with because, they couldn't get it done what the fans wanted, not because they made that choice, but because they couldn't get what they wanted, they couldn't achieve their goal. And, that just is what it is. And so I feel like when you have that negative press coming from national media, I think he'll go radio silent, like super radio silent, two radios silent. And that's gonna suck. That's all it's gonna do. It's gonna suck. Um, but I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm gonna be wrong on this. I think this will make national headlines 100%. And if they make national headlines, how will the press react? Pretty harshly. And given everything going on in America right now, in comparison to other presidents, I guess, the news is rumbling with Donald Trump. I feel like everyone's talking about him. Everyone talks about the president a lot, but you know what I mean here. I read between the lines what I'm trying to say is that, a lot of negativity, well, not negativity, a lot of people are displeased with what he's doing. There's a lot more debates going on in, right now than there would be in different candidacies in the past. There always will be debates, but you know what I mean. Tensions are high. So, I mean, is it really good for I mean, UFC was already getting flack for having him there. I think that was a big deal. But this, gonna get a lot of flack. But it's like part of it's, you kind of have a who cares mentality when you talk about that. 'Cause it's like, oh, these people don't like it. Well, they don't have to watch. Who cares? So as long as Dana White and the UFC business model is unaffected by all the negative press they're gonna get, then this is just gonna be it's gonna be a great event and it's gonna do great. I just hope it doesn't negatively impact the UFC, and I have worries that it will. Now I know we're gonna talk about who's gonna fight on that card. I have no idea because it's like a year away. Who knows what it could be shaped up? I mean, for all we know, Ian Gary could be champ, man. No, it's not happening unless Islam vacates. Because, Islam's beating JDM. But you get the joke. You get the point I'm trying to make here. You know? We don't know where we'll be. So I can't really tell you who should fight on it. But you're going to have to do an American. Who's the best American in the UFC right now? Probably Sean Brady. In all honesty, yeah, I can't. Right? Am I missing anybody? Like talented? If they had a pound for pound Americans, I'd have Sean Brady. Number one welterweight division. It can't be anybody but him. You know? Yeah. Wow. Sean Brady. I'm no disrespect to Sean Brady. He's a good fighter. You know? He's gonna beat Bilal. I don't think he's gonna beat JDM or Islam, but I know he got knocked out by Bilal actually. Maybe he doesn't beat Bilal. I don't know. It's a topic for a different day. We don't even know what fight he has next. But I guess, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, it's July. This news just got announced. We don't know all the details yet. I'll be making more videos as the months, and the year comes when more news will be announced. So yeah, all right. Let's talk about something else now. Production. Look at this. Look at what I have going on. Pretty cool. Brought out my camera and my light because at the end of the day, I can't really run from this. I'm kind of addicted to using my equipment. It wasn't depressing, but I wasn't having as much fun with the webcam and stuff as I was with the camera. Now, when I live stream events, they're like my reactions and stuff, because I'm going to do a fight card for, I'm going to do the Nashville card. Might just do the main card, though, in all honesty, because the prelims are shit, but I don't know. I'm going to figure out how to do good battery swaps. I might need to get like a plug-in wall battery, but I don't know if that could be on top of I don't know how that works with my tripod. So I'll have to figure it out. I always figure it out. I have the light out. My eyes really hurt. It's kind of on me. You know what I have? Check this out. Look at this. What do you guys think? Is this a better Jake Show look? The Jake Show man? This is a good look, right? Do I just look like a complete douchebag, or do I look like kind of cool, or do I look like an idiot? Who knows, right? You guys can't really see where I'm looking though, which is actually pretty cool. Because I could like keep my head still, but like I'm looking at my computer to my left. But you guys don't know that. And I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking at my right. So it might actually be kind of cool. Cause I don't know. But yeah, that's it. Please like and subscribe, share. I hope you guys appreciate. Not I don't use the word appreciate. I appreciate you guys watching, but I hope you guys like the production. Um, and yeah. It's what I want to do for my living. I want to be a producer. So I know this is, I guess I gotta make the creative decisions of how my show looks, which is pretty cool. Um, but yeah, peace out. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you.